Krackel caper Ray Simon.
We all know that we can learn important lessons from ordinary events. What we fail to realize is that we decide, before we even have an experience, what it is that we're going to learn. Said another way, where we go with a lesson in life is decided by where we come from. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and friends, I discovered this in telling a story from my first job. Our employer was raffling off a 25-pound Hershey Krackel chocolate bar. The winner was an engineer in our group, and he wanted to share it with everybody on the floor. When he brought it to our office, we all marveled at the stately snack. It was more than an inch thick and wide enough to block an aisleway. We wanted to cut it into bite-sized pieces so that everybody could have some. And therein lies the challenge. How do you take one big chocolate square and turn it into many little chocolate squares? One engineer had an idea that would make short work of our delectable dilemma. He grabbed the unsuspecting Krackel and trotted off into the machine shop, setting it down on what could best be described as a laser-guided steel bandsaw. Donning his protective goggles, he prudently measured twice and fired the cutting beast up. He coerced the condemned Krackel into the carbide cutter. All was going as planned. And then, something went terribly wrong. The blade refused to cut. Confused, the engineer turned off the machine and inspected. You see, the chocolate had clogged up the cutting teeth of the blade, rendering it useless. But a second engineer stepped up and insisted that a more powerful machine would defeat the defiant delicacy. He commandeered the convicted Krackel and carried it off to a bigger machine. He set it on a more potent device, and this must have been powerful indeed, for it sat high in a cement slab that sported yellow stripes and a sign that said, "Safety gear required." This was a computer-controlled ultrasonic cutter capable of coursing through carbon fiber with a blade of sound. The engineer programmed the blade to chart its course. All systems were go, and the silent blade began to separate the chocolate. And then something very unexpected happened. You see, the chocolate hot from the blade was fusing itself back together. The Krackel remained in one piece. Dazed and distraught, the salivating engineer stared at the stubborn snack. The silence was broken by the approach of the office manager. This was a mom who had survived raising 3 boys and was regarded with such love that we all called her Mom. The office mom grabbed the Krackel without a word to anybody and stole it away to the office. Like a lost lamb, each engineer followed in obedient silence. The office mom set the Krackel down on the counter and began fishing through her lower desk drawer. In short order, she produced a screwdriver and a hammer. Without even stopping to take aim, she marked the Krackel with the screwdriver, drew the hammer back, and whack! The Krackel cracked into many pieces that were all uneven in size. The engineers were aghast, but nobody dared challenge the office mom. Without hesitating, the office mom drew the hammer back again and again. Whack! Whack! Breaking the Krackel into smaller and smaller uneven pieces. By the time the attack had ceased, her credenza was covered in chocolate Krackel carnage. A heavy silence hung in the air. And then one person, a young engineer, she reached forward and picked up a tiny piece of Krackel. had no square edges. It had no straight lines. But she was pleased because this was the perfect piece of Krackel for her. A big burly engineer stepped forward and grabbed a big corner piece, smug that he had snagged the perfect piece of Krackel. You see, we needed no high-tech gadgets or cutters to create perfect cubes of chocolate. The perfect piece was what we decided it was. Now I started off by saying that we can learn important lessons from ordinary events, but I was struggling with this one. I called my brother-in-law up. He's a police detective. I told him the whole story. So what's the lesson? He said, that's easy. The simplest explanation is the most likely. This is true, but I was looking for something a little more profound. So I called up another friend. He's a theology professor. I told him the whole story, and at the end I said, what's the lesson? He thought about it. The answer will come to you. But not in the shape that you expect. I had two correct answers that were entirely separate. What do I do now? And then it came to me. I saw the real lesson. I'll tell you now. Like all those engineers who looked out at that Krackel, they picked the right piece for them. We look at the experiences of our lives and pick the right lessons for us. I was so excited that I got to the bottom of this. I called my sister up. I told her the whole story. She was busy chasing kids around the house, trying to keep them in line. I said, no, you have to listen. I got to the end of the story and I said, and do you know what the lesson behind this is? And she said, yeah, Mom is always right.